Lost Ark is a game with a ton of systems that on its surface can be very confusing for somebody that is just stepping into the game. This is the case for me when I first started, and I definitely made my fair share of mistakes. Today's video will hopefully shed some light to those mistakes that I made so you don't have to make them when you first start playing. So here are 5 of the biggest mistakes that I made when I was playing the game and advice for how you can avoid them. The first mistake that I made, and definitely one of the most common advice that you'll hear from others, is about questing in Lost Ark. As you level up, you actually don't need to do all of the quests to hit level 50, which is the level that you need to be to progress to the end game content. But there's a point in the story where you'll hit the continent called Arthentine, and from there you will actually have to start doing all of the quests, including the yellow ones and not just the mainline ones, to hit level 50. If you don't do this, you'll end up having to backtrack and doing the yellow quests again separately to reach that level 50 mark, which will slow down your progress by a ton and also probably not the most enjoyable experience. The second mistake that I made has to do with the Tower of Shadow that you get when you hit endgame. When you get to the endgame, you get to a city called Burn, and you'll unlock your Chaos Dungeons, your Guardian Raids, your Abyss Dungeons, and also something called the Tower of Shadow. The Tower of Shadow gives you a ton of rewards for your first clear on the account, such as skill points, engraving books, giant's hearts, and etc. The one thing to note is that almost all of the rewards that you get on the first clear are account-wide rewards, or they're transferable between characters. So because of this, you'll want to clear the tower on an alt on your first time around, because all the subsequent times that you clear the tower after your first time clearing it will actually give you a ton of materials that'll help you progress the character much faster. So my advice to you is actually to clear the tower on your alt first before you clear it on your main, because the important thing to note is that all of these materials that you get from your subsequent clears are actually all character bound, so you can't transfer them. That's why it's better to clear the tower on your alt for the first time, which gives the account bound rewards, then clear it on your main to get the character bound rewards. The third mistake that I've made, and probably the biggest mistake that I made while playing the game, is with a system called inheritance. When you first advance into a tier, whether it's tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, the equipment that you get will be blue gear. This gear is used to help you get the gear score that you need to do the content for that tier. At some point, you'll also get purple gear. For tier 1 and tier 2, that's through the Abyss dungeons, which some of you may decide to not do for the gear because normally you grow out of that gear pretty quickly in tier 1 and tier 2, so you just progress through using the blue gear that you get from the Chaos dungeons. Now in tier 3, you will also get blue gear when you first start off, but you'll actually get purple gear later on when you start doing higher levels of the Chaos dungeon. So this is something that everybody will get as they progress in tier 3. So here's the thing, when you first get purple gear, whether it's tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, you'll probably have already upgraded your blue gear a little bit, so you can actually inherit all the upgrades that you had from that blue gear, so you don't have to worry about starting again from +0 if it's the same tier of gear. So blue gear and purple gear from tier 1, you can transfer the upgrades. Same with tier 2, same with tier 3. I made this mistake and didn't realize I could do that, so I wasted a ton of materials and money upgrading my tier 3 purple gear without transferring the enhancements from my blue gear. This is something that you definitely all want to avoid doing. Now at this point you're probably wondering, what do you do with the gear that you've maxed upgraded from tier 1 as you move into tier 2? Do I just sell that equipment? Well actually, I need to make a confession. You know how earlier I said that you can't transfer upgrades between tiers? Well, that's not entirely true. When you transfer a +15 piece of gear from tier 1 to a piece of gear on tier 2, you will actually get some of that experience. But it'll only give your equipment +1, which really doesn't take all that many materials. So if you really wanted to do that, you can go ahead and do it. If not, you can just sell the equipment. So the fourth mistake and piece of advice that I have for you guys has to do with resting EXP that I talked about in my last video, which if you haven't watched already, go ahead and watch it. I'll leave a card on the top right of this video for you to check it out. But I talked about resting EXP and how it gives you more rewards when you complete a piece of daily content with that resting EXP saved up. Well, your resting EXP actually starts stacking the moment that you create a character. So even if you keep your character at level 1, by the time it hits level 50 and you unlock endgame, the resting EXP will have stacked up the entire time. So my recommendation is for you to create all your alts at the beginning, even if you aren't leveling them up. That way, when you do level them up and hit level 50, you'll get a huge boost in the rewards that you get for doing your daily content right from the get-go. Now, the last mistake that I want to talk about today and the advice that I want to give you is that shillings are very important. Most people talk about the importance of gold, and that currency is definitely the most important one, but shillings are also very important. As you progress your character, the earlier upgrades will all use shillings. So if you don't have any shillings, you won't be able to upgrade your gear as you're progressing them. At one point, I actually ran out of shillings to upgrade my alts gear, which slowed down my progression by a ton. So my recommendation is that on all your alts that are level 50, you should start running these dailies called low paying dailies. It's a very quick and easy way to get shillings, and it'll give you a steady income of shillings for just spending about 5 to 10 minutes on a character each day. That about wraps up this video. Hopefully you found it useful, and if you did, please help me out by leaving a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button down below. Also, let me know down in the comment section if you have any questions or anything else you want to learn about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all on the next one.